Hi there, it's Andrew Burke again, and this is a video companion to the HTML 500 presentation video, which you've hopefully already seen. If you haven't actually seen that, you should probably stop this video and immediately go and watch that. That's like over an hour of me explaining basics of HTML and CSS and how they work together and giving lots of examples. And then once you're done with that, you can come back here and watch the rest of this. So the idea with this, so the real life HTML 500 is designed to show the Lighthouse Labs way of learning, which is two parts, which has lectures from experienced developers, and then really importantly is a hands-on section where everyone in the class gets to sit down and do real work with, the key thing, a whole bunch of mentors around who are also experienced developers who are there to help you get past things, help explain things on a very one-to-one basis to help you move forward and really get that mentorship experience with experienced developers showing you what's what. Obviously, we can't do that in a video series. So what I thought I would try to do is make this video just showing me doing the exercises that came up at the end of the other presentation. So the other presentation finished with two exercises of two different kinds of websites to build, and I thought I would, or web pages to build, and I thought I would do those pages here for you so you could sort of see how an experienced developer goes about making web pages from basic simple HTML to adapting existing templates. And you'll see me write HTML and CSS with the text editor, using a bunch of the tricks in there. You'll see me refining content and changing things, and also repeatedly making sure things look good. So you'll see what regular day-to-day work of a developer is. You'll also hopefully see, no doubt, you'll see me make lots of stupid mistakes and typos and things like that. And you'll see me fix them, find them, figure them out, fix them, and how to move past them. So thing to note is experienced developers are simply developers who have made more mistakes and who have hopefully learned from those mistakes, or at least learned how to deal with the mistakes in a more effective way. So just on that note, there we go. We're ready. Let's get started. Okay, so here is my text editor, and here is my browser. It's waiting for me to start. So first thing I'm going to do is first thing is the assignment itself. I'm just going to bring this up for you. Project 1, 7 favorite films from scratch. So a while ago, a few months ago, there was a big hashtag that went around, and that came out just before we did one of the first versions of this class, and it turned out to be a really handy thing to do as an assignment. So it's called hashtag 7 favorite films, and basically just make a list of your 7 favorite films. Now, this could also be your 7 favorite books, your 7 favorite video games, your 7 favorite albums, whatever. But films is a nice, simple one. It's also kind of visual. So the idea with this is build a page from scratch based on the stuff that we learned in the class, and ideally include a header and a footer and various parts of the page, and ideally use sections maybe for laying out the page with the different films. Have a link for each film to its IMDb page. And then once you've got all that set up, make sure you got CSS as well that's integrated, that's linked to this regular page, and do a bunch of styling things. So I've recommended things like find a nicer looking font, maybe do some, take the footer and give it a border and shade it differently and give it smaller text. And then as you keep working, come up with a few extra things and see what you feel like. So that was project number 1. And project number 2 is do 7 favorite films again, but this time use a template. So as we explained in the class, there's a bunch of different websites, but the one we used is startbootstrap.com. And this lets you download these really good looking templates for websites that already use, they're already responsive. They use the Bootstrap framework for layout and stuff, and they look really great. So you can basically take those, and this is what a lot of professional developers do all the time, is they take these kinds of things and then they go in and modify those templates to fit what they want to actually have on the screen. So basically make your own, redo the 7 favorite films, but using this really great template that they've got, and adapt it to include all the stuff that you want. And this time include an image or even a video if you want for each of the movies. Change the framing content that they've got, like there's links for social media and things. Put those in if you want or not. If you don't want, remove them. And then make sure it looks good at all the different screen sizes. So those are the 2 assignments. And we're going to do both of them right here. So first off, we're just going to do a basic standard landing page. So let's get started with that. So here's our page. Here's a blank text editor. This is Sublime Text, which is the one we're going to be using for this class. And first thing I'm going to do is going to call it, I'm going to save it. So that was me going File, save. That's Command S. So I'm going to use keyboard shortcuts as much as possible, just because it's faster. A real programmer will spend most of their time typing, and most of the time their hands won't leave the keyboard. They'll just be typing. If you use the mouse and have to go around all over the place, it can slow you down. So as you get used to programming, you'll find you'll do more and more stuff just with the keyboard. So I am going to Command S and save, and I'm going to take this and I'm going to put this on inside the HTML500 and examples and the examples folder. So this is going to be called 7fav films HTML. So remember, an HTML file is a simple plain text file, and it has .html at the end, just like Word documents have .doc, Excel files have .xls, et cetera, et cetera. These ones, HTML files have .html at the end. So we save that, and you'll notice the name shows up here. And down here, the formatter, this is all the different languages that this text editor understands. It knows that it's HTML because we gave it the name HTML at the end, which means it's going to do some fancy formatting and stuff for us. So let's start. Now, we had in the handout that you got, and in the class before, it talked about the basic template that you need for doing an HTML page. And so I'm just going to put that in. Now, often I'll just have these already in a file and just copy and paste it in or make a new copy of a source file. But I figured I'd start by typing things from scratch here. So it's doc type HTML at the top. This is an extra way to tell people that this is an HTML file. Next, we start HTML and close HTML. And that way, this says everything in this content is going to be HTML. Sometimes when you're doing special things, you might have different kind of formats all on the same page. So then, inside that, we then want to do head, and then head. And you notice all I'm doing is I'm opening the slash, opening the bracket, hitting slash, and the text editor is already smart enough to look back and see what the previous tag was and immediately close the tag. I don't have to type /head. This is really handy because the number one thing that's going to happen is your page gets complicated. You're going to lose track of where you are. So in which tag needs to be closed or opened. So this is really handy that this editor helps do that, because I've spent a lot of time with much less powerful editors that don't do that for you, and it's easy to get really lost. And then we have body, which is where the body of the content is going to be. So now we've got our files together here, and title, my 7 favorite films. Okay, so there we go. And just a quick note with Sublime Text, you can see here it's yellow. That means it hasn't been saved yet. It hasn't been saved since you last edited. So you can always save it, and then it'll turn white again. Okay, so we got our head with a title tag in it. We have our body with nothing in it currently. We'll just say hello, save it again. Let's go find that in the browser and see that at least everything started properly. So it's HTML500, examples, I'll open this examples, 7 favorite films, open that. Okay, there we go, hello. See the title here. Now shows up here as a tab, or the name of the tab. You can see the file is actually all listed down here. And my content I put in, my placeholder content, is it says hello, hello. Often when you're programming, I often do a really absolutely bare bones, very simple thing, and then try to run it, or do very, very simple page and try to run and show it, just to make sure that all the pieces, the starting pieces all fit together. So if I'd screwed something up with like the, I don't know, left a closing tag off, or had something weird up here where it didn't close, I'm just thinking of ways I could wreck this page. You get weird stuff start to show up, right? Maybe, head, turn off title. I'm just trying to think of ways I can break this page. If I'd really screwed things up, you can see it sort of, this doesn't work, this was funny. Anyway, so now I've really messed up this page. How do I get it back to the way it was? I could go retype this, but undo is your friend. So you see undo is Command Z. Now you can undo and undo things that you've done, etc. But what's nice is Sublime Text remembers everything since you first did anything with the file. So ever since you started the file or you last opened the file from your file system, it remembers everything you've done. So you can just undo. Okay. There we go. So, and also if you undo too much, you can Command Shift Z to redo, or actually it's Command Y. So it's Command Z, Command Y, Command Z, Command Y, Command Z, Command Y. Okay, so that way you can undo things. If you realize you wanted to redo it, you can Command Y to get it back. So let's save that and reload. There we go. So we're back to where we started. So Now we have the basics for our page. Let's see. So, okay, now I'm going to, before we do anything else, I'm going to link it to a style sheet, which won't have anything in it, but at least I'll know href equals styles CSS. Okay, and then I'm going to make that file. So Command N, that's file new. Right, file, new file at the top there, and that's Command N. So I made a new file. It opens it up in a new tab for me, which was handy. And then I'm not even going to do anything. I'm just going to call it styles CSS. Okay. Oops. Interesting. What happened here? Oh, I got rid of this. Okay. See, I'm already making mistakes. All right. So there we are. Back to hello. Now, if we wanted to do something in this style CSS, we could do something just to make sure everything's connected and working. I often like to do sort of crazy stuff just to make sure, body, color, red. Okay, this means, and we'll get to this in a minute, anything inside the body tag is going to have red for the text. So let's just make sure this worked. There it goes. Okay, so now we know that we have a properly formatted HTML file that actually is readable by a browser. We know that it's linked to a style sheet, and the style sheet works, and it's actually coloring the content. So we're actually well on our way. We now know all the pieces fit together. Now we'll get rid of this because we don't need that. Maybe I'll make this bigger, just because we're on a video. There we go. You can see the page a bit better with everything's larger. So I'm going to make everything bigger by default, and we'll see how we do with that. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to have, I'm going to make this, so I'm going to use some of these semantic tags. This is sort of the new ways that things work on the web. Is it used to be you had to sort of just use straight up tags like p and maybe div if you were feeling really advanced, and those didn't really, and then you'd be able to assign classes and IDs to those divs, etc., and paragraphs and such to help you sort of make your own definitions of how the page should be laid out. But what people tend to do now is we've got these semantic tags that are really helpful. There's a list on your handout of what they all are, and those will give you a better sense of how they actually are more helpful for the standard ways that your pages are laid out and organized. So you can see here we've got header, we've got main, we've got footer. So at the footer, we can do something like, this page was made by Andrew Burke for the Lighthouse Labs HTML 500. There we go. So, and I'll maybe put those in P. And I'm doing all these things where I'm jumping to the end of the line and the front of the line. I'm using little keyboard shortcuts that I happen to know from using other programs for a long time. So that's, for me, I'm using Control A, Control E, which bounces me around. You're often going to the beginning and to the end of a line. Let's see if there's any things inside here that help that too. Everyone's got different things. You should look into your browser, into your text editor, take some time to read the documentation. It's really handy. Take a few days, take some time every little while. If you're going to be serious about this, read the documentation, because it's really handy, and a little bit of time reading documentation will really help you out with a lot of stuff. So it covers all sorts of different things you can do, and it's really, really handy. So take some time if you want to get into this after this program, and you start working with Sublime Text, read the documentation a bit. Even just browse a little bit, do one section a day or so. That'll really help you learn lots of great shortcuts and tips and tricks and everything. So this page was made by me for Lighthouse Labs HTML 500. Header should include the title, my 7 favorite films, at least for now. By Andrew Burke. Actually, we said that at the top. So what I've done here is this is the H1 tag, right? This means top level header, like the title of a book, the title of an article. H2 is a bit less, so I figured it would be kind of handy to have it sort of down here as maybe not quite the full strength title as the top, but at least something. Down here, we're going to put the content in, list of films here. And then at the footer, we have some other content that was said this is being by me. Now, what I haven't done is I haven't actually put my list in, but I'd like to be able to know how my layout works. So what I do is I just put a bunch of temporary text in. Remember, you're dealing with a web page. This isn't like you're typing on an actual typewriter or writing like with ink on a page. This is all temporary. You can change it, delete it anytime you want. So what I often do is I'll put placeholder content in just so I know where things are. And then you can, of course, change them later. And especially if it's really obvious placeholder content, this says list of films here. Maybe do something with special brackets so that you know that it's not going to be, so if you forget, you see this in the newspaper every so often, people forget to replace placeholder content and it's really embarrassing. Ideally, if you use this a lot, put things in a certain kind of brackets and then you can do a search for those or put special characters around like 3 stars or something. That's a quick way, and then you can do a quick search for 3 stars and find anything that's still a placeholder. That was me going Command F, and then I just typed 3 stars down on the bottom and it jumped me to the first one, and then Command G jumps to the next one. So this is just me quickly cycling through. And you can see there it says 2 of 2 matches, 1 of 2 matches, 2 of 2 matches. So that's a way. Okay, so here's our page. My 7 favorite films, at least for now. List of films here. This page was made by me for the Lighthouse as HTML1200. Now, it's not pretty, but we have some content. So let's see what we can do and we'll make it prettier later. I'm going to shrink this down. Now I should get rid of this whole font size thing. There we go. See what this does. Okay, now it's a bit smaller, but I can pump up the browser size a bit, so at least it's more visible for you watching on video. So there's our page. Here's our content. So now I'm going to do, let's see now. Of course, picking these films is always a challenge. You never know which ones you're going to, people are going to have opinions on, but I'm going to pick Star Wars, Inside Out, Rogue One. I shall put Rogue One up here. Oops. There we go. You notice that I'm really trying to make sure the indentation works properly. That's because it's really important when you're working on HTML, because things are always inside other things in HTML. So you want to make sure that you've got the proper indentation as you're going through the stuff. So you'll see me being very persnickety. Some editors will automatically indent for you. Other ones will sort of sometimes indent for you. Other ones will indent for you after you've typed for a while. So I could do here, let's see. So I've done that. And now if I want to, I can take all of this and I can go under Edit, Line, Reindent. And now it'll reindent everything on the page, which is really handy as a way to quickly find out what's going on. Let's see. So I like science fiction and stuff like that, as you may have noticed. Yep, another one, because I'm a nerd. Sorry. I did include Inside Out. What's a good art movie that I like that's that maybe is a little different? Days of Heaven. If you haven't seen that one, it's really quite gorgeous. It's from the 70s. It has a young Richard Gere in it and Sam Shepard as well. And it's all shot in Lethbridge, Alberta. And it's all shot at sunset in magic hour. And it is one of the most gorgeous films ever made. Supposedly they made a completely different film, but the audio didn't work and the dialogue didn't work. So they cut out most of the dialogue. And it's just sort of this elliptical, poetic kind of tragic film, but all shot against the gorgeous, gorgeous Southern Alberta prairie. And it's really quite something. Anyway, and maybe one more that's kind of fun, Hardcore Logo. That is a Canadian punk movie by Bruce McDonald that's got Callum Keith Rennie and the guy from the Headstones, and it's really good. It's kind of crazy and insane and fun. A bit dark here and there, but it's all punk rock. It's very punk rock. So well worth seeing if you haven't seen it before. So there's a bunch of movies. Okay, so there's my 7 movies, and I just made them in simple paragraphs. And let's see how this works. There we go. So they're paragraphs, and that's all. There we go. So it's basically raw stuff. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. So we just, now maybe we'd like these to be numbered or something like that. So we could manually add numbers in here, right, which would be kind of okay. But there's better ways to do that. So let's instead of doing paragraphs, let's make this an ordered list. Okay, so we talked about this in the class. And so instead of P, we're going to make an ordered list. And down here, we should remember to turn off the ordered list. This is important. it's easy to get lost about where your tags are and which ones you open and close, as I've said several times before. So you can see here I started an ordered list, and they immediately went down to where the end would be and closed the ordered list. And the text editor was really helpful on that. This is really important because if I'd forgotten, like it had just been like this, the page would still load and it would kind of look okay, but it would be a little funny, and then maybe other stuff would start to show up indented in funny ways, and it would just be strange. So you should always remember to close your ordered list. So and then I want to take all these P's and I want to turn them into LIs. So here's another thing that's handy with your text editor. You can do find and replace. So what this does is I can now go in and do a bulk change and everything. Now, this is early enough in the page. We don't have lots of weird content that's overlapping. So we can say find what, and we're going to look for P. And you can see there it helpfully highlights everything that you're about to replace. Notice I've got these ones down in the footer, but we'll see if we can fix that. And we want to replace that with li. So this lets us, by only doing the beginning, I could do also this kind of P, but you see there that only highlights the opening tags, and then I wouldn't have changed the closing tags. But if I leave this out, you see I get both. So this is handy. So this is kind of cleaner and easier. So I can then do replace. Now I could do replace all, but then I'd lose these ones at the bottom. So now it's probably quicker because there's a whole bunch of these that did need to be replaced. I can then just change this back to P. When I'm done, and change that back to P. So you can see there now we've got Li and P. So let's see what this looks like. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it already numbers them automatically. And I can change the order on all of these. Say I want to move the art movie up front to look like I'm cooler than I am. And maybe hardcore logo, which is also kind of Canadian rock movies, can go together. So I'll move Scott Pilgrim right after that. And then things about the weird insides of people's heads can go right next to each other. And then we have Star Wars, Rogue One, and Mad Max. So there we go. I've just reorganized the page a bit. Okay, now it's all, but I didn't have to change the numbering, which was handy. So now, once again, you notice here the indentation would be handy to actually make these in OL. So I go Edit, Line, Reindent. And it knows to indent everything a bit. So now I've got, now this doesn't change what it looks like, but it does always give me a chance to see what's inside other things. So next, let's just make these bold. Now, different text editors will have different opinions on what should be indented and not. So sometimes they'll read back again, but it looks like we're okay now. So let's make these here. So I'll work on this and here. Because we want to write a few things about each of these. I'm not going to write a whole novel because you don't want to see me writing about all these movies, but maybe do a choice quote from each one or something like that. Oops. And up here. So now I've made them bold, and then I'll put the quotes right afterwards. Now I'm going to put them on their own lines. They don't have to be. And remember that if it's on its own line, it doesn't change. It doesn't actually add a line break anywhere else on the content. It helps you laying out on your text editor. So does it have an magic hour. And then hardcore logo. I don't remember any of these names. Any actually lines from some of these movies. Great punk rock Canadian road movie. Okay. So, and then we can just make sure these work. Okay, you can see there, this is bold, and we have other content afterwards that's not. Okay. Sculpture versus the world. It took a Brit to make the Great Toronto movie, because it was not a Canadian movie. Inside Out. Thanks, San Francisco. Now you've ruined pizza. Right, I love that quote. So you can see here, I'm just trying stuff out and putting some content in. You're not going to waste more time. Force is strong with this one. And Rogue One, of course, my similar quote will be, I am one with the Force, and the Force is with me. And then Mad Max Fury Road. Gosh, I don't know, some quote. We're boys. All right. So there we go. So there's our content. There's our things, and there we got some basic stuff, right? So that's pretty good. That's one way of doing things. Now let's try doing some styling. So one thing that often happens, so you can see here we have main, we have body, we have header, we have main, and then footer. So what pages often have done is your body will be a dark background. Okay, so dark gray. And then your header, main, footer will have they'll be indented a little bit, and that's kind of a nice way to sort of give your pages a bit of a margin. So often it can be a percentage. And if you make them the same, it kind of keeps things clean. And so then we can go to, not this one, margin left. Now, we could do a width, and then well, we'll show what happens when we do this. So we're just going to make this a background white, background light gray, background white again. So bang, you can see there we've got some sort of shaping of things. Now you notice it sort of just puts it to the left, which is kind of annoying. So now you could do, there's several ways of doing this. So one way, we can try different ones on different pieces. So one way is to go margin left 40 pixels, margin right 40 pixels, okay? That makes sure that the margins are equal, right? We say 40 and 40. And then we've already specified the width. We haven't specified the width specifically, but we can say this is 40-40, which is kind of handy. That's one way, quick and easy way to do it. We can also, because the width is supposed to be a certain percent, you can also do margin left auto, margin right auto. So this means automatically make the margins fit whatever you're trying to do. And since they're both auto, that basically does the same thing. But this is this way, it actually stretches to be 90%, which is sort of like 40, but not really. So you can see it changes how it fits as it goes. So we can change this to 80%, you'll sort of see. Okay, it's narrower. So let's take this, let's pick this back to 90. I kind of like the auto just because it's, if you do auto with, because it's a bit more responsive, it's by percentage rather than, so if you do width, you don't force it to be 40 or 100 pixels or whatever, you can just make it be, so there we go. So now we have something that's kind of dynamic. You see it stretches, it shrinks, it still gives you a nice margin that's a portion of the screen, and everything's all lined up nicely. So there we go. So that's kind of handy. So now we've got some a bit better stuff. So let's try to reformat some of this stuff a bit here. So let's get a better font. Family. So font family. So you'll notice also as I'm typing, font, can't type. It's giving me all sorts of options. It's helping me because it knows HTML. The text editor already knows HTML, so it's trying to give me suggestions on what I want to do. So font family is what I want, and you have to hit tab to get that to work. Here you can sort of specify. Now, font family, you can't guarantee what everyone's going to have on their computers. So you want to sort of pick ones and sort of have a cascading down. So Helvetica, which is a Macintosh font, Arial, which is the Windows version, and then you can also just say sans serif. Let me just make sure on the spelling. I always forget the spelling. There we go, sans serif. Okay, so now everything is going to be, see that? Okay, so we changed it from Times New Roman, which is the default, to this sort of cleaner looking one, which is cool. But if we want to, now this is a bit more at advanced level, but I'm going to open up a new browser and I'm going to go to fontsgoogle.com. And Google provides a ton, hundreds and hundreds of fonts. You know, tons and tons of them. There's so many in here, and let's see, we can have featured fonts. Let's see what's trendy these days. Oh boy. Perfect pairings. No, these are monospace fonts. I don't want monospace fonts. Let's just try some, let's pick some other ones just for kicks here. Lighthouse looks nice. Oswald, that looks rather charming because it's kind of got a bit of a narrowness to them. So you go here and you say one family selected. This is great. So Oswald, and it gives you, basically you pick your font and it gives you some special things to do. So embed the font, put this in your head. So I'm just going to copy, and let's go over to here. And this is another reason you have the head section. So you can do things like embed your font. So you see link, href, rel, style sheet, and it's Google API CSS family Oswald. So you can have multiple style sheets, which is important to know. And then in say CSS, you can pick there. And so you just follow these instructions, and it's really handy. There we go. Okay, so let's try this page again. Bang, there we go. That's kind of neat. It's a little strong, but maybe that's a good title font, and maybe we should pick something sort of cleaner and simpler for the content. Maybe Open Sans Condensed. I don't know, Ubuntu. There we go. How about Ubuntu? Oops. Let's open this up. Ah, you see, we picked too many. Let's get rid of Oswald. Or actually, let's try that again. See, I'm learning. This is stuff I don't use this all the time. I go in here every so often when I'm setting up a new site, and then I stop. So I'm sort of remembering how this all fits. But you see, this lets us, let's change this so it's giving us both. So we can go to here and paste. You'll learn to spend a lot of time pasting. And there's Ubuntu. So we're going to make, so now we're going to assign Ubuntu to body in general. And then H1 and H2 are going to be in font family Oswald sans serif. So what we've done is we've got two different fonts, and this is what you often find people do, is you have one set of fonts for the headings, for like section headings and things like that, and it'll be maybe a more dramatic looking font. You have another section, another kind of font that's for just the regular content. So let's see how that looks. It's okay. Well, this isn't about pretty. If we wanted pretty, we can do it to other things. But anyway, it gives you a sense. So there we go. So I've got some basic stuff. Now let's take the main and give it some padding. Okay, so that's a bit nicer. We've got our padding there. And the header, let's give this one. And here as well. And the problem is with CSS out of the box is you end up repeating yourself a lot if you've got elements that you want to keep consistent. There's ways of getting around that that we can talk about later. But anyway, you can see here we've got things now. We added padding. It sort of put things together kind of nicely, which is sort of cool. And there we go. So that's kind of neat. Notice with this new font, bold doesn't seem to work, which is interesting. So anyway, we'll have to figure that out with the fonts. We can also just get rid of this specification entirely, or just take it back to Helvetica if we just don't like what we're seeing. And maybe make sure it's smaller or something. Anyway, you can see the idea. Don't want to get bogged down in this. So that's one way of doing a page. And so you can see we're making some progress here. Maybe the footer should be border top 3 pixels solid orange. And maybe the header should have a margin border bottom of 3 pixels solid orange. So what we're doing here is you could do border bottom width, for example, very specifically in, say, 3 pixels. But I like to do them, you can sort of put them together if they're the obvious things. So you could border bottom width, style, color, etc. But I like to just do them, you can mix them all together with borders. A 3 pixel solid orange, 3 pixel solid orange, the border in the bottom and the border at the top are the same. There you go, that's kind of nifty. I can make the header one thicker, make it 6 pixels. So now we got some serious content there. Maybe make the header, yes, padding is 10 pixels, but padding bottom should be 0 pixels. Okay, maybe even because, whoops. Let's see. Nope. Sometimes things happen in different ways. I'll explain what I'm doing later, but let's, there we go. Okay, so that's pretty good. Padding top, 0 pixels. So similar idea, we're making these sort of a bit tighter. What we're getting here partially is that the H2 implies a certain amount of space at the bottom, and so we need to redefine a bit of H2 to make this pad better. And same thing with here, footer. I'm going to make the font size in the footer 50%. So font sizes can be specified, can be specified in all sorts of different ways. You can specify them in points, which is like in typography. You can define them in pixels with px. You can define them in EMs, which is sort of the height of a regular piece of text. You can define them in percentages. I like percentages often because it makes it more relative. Because if your body is going to be defined a certain way, this will make it a certain subset. So let me make that 70 instead. Makes it a bit easier. You can see now we've got something that looks, it's not gorgeous, but it looks clean. Let me see. So H1, margin bottom 0 pixels. So now, okay. And let's take H2, margin top 0 pixels. So now they wrap up against each other. Color gray. Oops. Okay, now it's kind of grayish. Font style italic. Okay, see, now I'm making this a bit more stylish. Maybe we can even have this be light gray. That's a little too light. This is gray. And then we have our content, and let's try something a little more fun here. So instead of list items, we can totally go with that, and that's fine. Whoops. We can totally go with that, that's fine. But I think we might want to do something with our semantic tags again, which is things like section. So instead of OL, now that means we don't get the numbering automatically, but numbering may not be that important. You got to sort of decide what you want to do. So article. Okay. And an article can also have headings, which is a bit fun. And this will actually be interesting. You'll see what happens here. Okay. So I'm just changing this one. We're going to see what it looks like. Now you see our header, we already told it it's going to have an orange bottom. So we've got a header up here, we've got a header and article. So this is fun because we start having to worry about being a bit pickier about, there we go, border 1 pixel dark gray. Oops. Okay. So you can see here I've now changed it so the border, there's a section now, article has, so we said header, and that's header for the page in general. But what I've then done is article header is specific, so I changed the border. Border here is supposed to be 6 pixels. What I said is, if you're very specific, if you're a header inside an article, make the border as 1 pixel solid dark gray. So this starts to get a bit complicated. This is where you start saying things like cascading style sheets, because you've got sort of different levels of definition. It can start to get kind of complicated. So you also can have article. So I'm going to make article its own thing. I'm going to have that background white. And border also 1 pixel solid dark gray. Can't spell today. So now you can see here, okay, so now we have to sort of undo these margins and width 100%. Okay, whoops. Margin left, margin right. But at the end of the day, this may turn out to be uglier than we expected because of the way these sort of interact, because we've got this header and that header. So we might just want to get rid of this and go back to our OLs. Anyway, this is one of these things is that maybe you try something and you're like, that gets complicated because we've already got a header and a thing, and maybe you can just do this and get back to our LIs again. And maybe we can do something different with LIs. So take this back, and then we need to put the OL back at the beginning. And, okay, we're back to this. Now I've got a different thing. I put these in. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to put BR. So BR is just your simple line break. So you see there. So each of these LIs, I'd like to change these to space them out a bit better, though. So even if we couldn't get all fancy with this, we can do things like LIs are going to be margin bottom 1M. So this makes a full line of extra space between the bottoms. There we go. Okay, and maybe we want to make a list item have a background of white. Okay, now you can see it's beginning, but the number sort of doesn't show up. Anyway, we can try different things. Whoops. Okay. Now, let's see. So if we did that, let's add a BR after all of these. BR, there we go. Okay, so you can see here we've got these. Now we've got them kind of broken out a bit better. Maybe we can do something, I don't know, maybe the BR, maybe this should actually be span class equals title, or movie title. So we can make up our own. And then, okay, this goes away, but then we can say things like, remember we said class, so that's movie title. And we can make it font weight bold. Maybe we can make that family thing again. Family Oswald. I don't know, let's see if that might look ugly or not. Okay. Color, dark blue. Font size, 125%. 150. Okay, that's kind of nifty. And if we do that with the rest of them, so it's going to be called class movie title. Now we could also just do div class equals movie title, which will do the same thing. And we get rid of that. Means we don't have to worry about the BR because we're already in a thing. So do this. Okay, so once again, you see I'm putting things into their own little lines once they get more complicated because it's easy to get carried away. Let me put this over here. And now the thing with the div is it automatically implies that it's on its own line unless you do extra special things. So we don't need the extra BR because it will make the break between the things anyway. Let's see, there we go. And I forgot to put the class equals movie title, so I'll put that in. So once again, copy paste is your friend. You're using a computer, computers are good at this. Make it so you don't have to type over and over again. It's really important. Of course, I just typed again, but that's okay. You see it actually even knows some of the classes that are available, which is kind of handy. There we go. Let's see how this works. Okay, kind of nifty. So there you go, we're getting better. So that gives us some content. It gives us some subtitles. It gives us numbers. That's cool. Maybe we should make this, let's see, maybe make these also divs. Class equals movie caption. Okay, so now we can just paste these in. Paste. Anyway, so you get the sense of how this fits. Oops, and then of course I need to finish these, and it nice and helpfully puts them in. Okay, it doesn't change, but now I can do things with movie caption that maybe has a, let's see, font, style, italic. Let's see what would be good. Color. Quick note on color. You can give it all these names. There's all sorts of names. But you can also use what are called hex codes, which are hexadecimal, which is an annoying number. It's a base 16 counting, like we count with base 10. Computers like numbers that are divisible by 2. So base 16 is 2 divided by 2 divided by 2, etc. divided by 2. So what it is each of these numbers you can actually have, it's actually 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. That would be, this is the red number here. This is the green number here, and this is the blue number. So if you think of like televisions used to be, you know, RGB screens, RGB adapter, etc. Well, red, green, blue, these are the same things. These are the colors that go into a color. So if you're using, you know, a Macintosh, there's utilities that do this. You've got Photoshop or Preview or any number of other things. I use one called SIP, which is missing here for some reason. Anyway, it might be, there we go. No, it should be showing up. Maybe you got, anyway. But you can use a little color picker thing and pick colors, and a lot of them will now show you those codes. So what this does is it gives me, this is a sort of fairly dark gray. See, there's sort of a charcoal gray. If I make this 9, now if it's the red part, if it's the same numbers, 4, 4, 4, 4, you can just make it that. So if it's 6 numbers where the pairs are each identical, you can just make them down to 3 numbers, which is easier. So let's go all the way up to 999, and you'll see what this does. Okay, you see it's fading out a lot. And then the thing is, so you have enough. So you have, the idea is you have 16 gradients, 16 by 16 actually for each of these things. And you want to get all the way up to 16 means you have to go past 9 but still not lose a character. So you go to A, and then B, then C. So you go CCC. It's really faded. It's very, very hard to see at this point. EEE is almost the top. You see it's starting paler. And FFF is pure white. Okay? And then 000 is pure black. Now, if you want to start doing fun things, so then try doing things like F00. That should be bright red. 0F0, red, green, that should be green. That's a hideous green, but there you go. It's a very bright green. And then this is blue. Okay? And then you can start mixing and matching. So if you want this, which gives us this teal color, but if you want to make it maybe a little less so maybe you do 0AF, and you can sort of try different things. And then see what the color turns into. There's also lists online that shows you all the different colors you want to, but that's kind of a nifty color. I like it's easy to get lost if you're trying to get fancy colors, but I like to sometimes do a nice, that's a deep blue, deep red, maybe a 7. So the higher the number, the more that color is in. So here's, sort of a dark red with some darkness underneath, etc. Now you can go really fine-tuning with there's up to 6 of these, which means you get more precise about the face shading of the numbers, but that's kind of fun. So there you go. So there's a basic version of our page. There's this page is made is smaller font. There's our content. There's our 7 favorite films, at least for now, all put together, and it's even it stretches and shrinks to fit the width of our page. It doesn't suddenly cut anything off. The text will wrap if we get down to here, etc. So there you go. That's a basic version of a page. So that's not too bad. There's all sorts of other things we could do. This is just a start, but it gives you an idea of how things fit together. So the next thing, I'm going to pause this briefly so I can get some water, and then I'll be back shortly. Okay, hi there, I'm back, and time for the second project. This is building the same kind of content, 7 favorite films, but using a template like we showed in the class, and I will now do that right now. So first thing is to go to the website that has the templates. So really like Start Bootstrap, it has a whole bunch of really nice looking templates of all sorts of types, and you can see all the ones down here. Landing pages for your apps, creative themes, all sorts of things. So what I tend to like, what we tend to use here, you can view all themes. This is startbootstrap.com. And one that's really worked well for us over the past is this one called Landing Page, and that's the one we use in the video. So we're going to use that as well, just so we can keep consistency. And so you keep preview and download. It gives you a sense of what the page looks like, see what it's got, etc. And so you just hit download, and it downloads it. Depending on the browser you're using, it'll download it in a different place and give you different places to find it. So you want to show the Finder. Oops, and it's off the screen. But you can see here, I could take this and I'll drag this over to my desktop. And then I'll double-click the zip file. Now, if you're on Windows, it might be slightly different, but generally it's a zip file that you can just open up. And so there it is. And I'll clear the original one out of the way. So what we got here is Start Bootstrap landing page. So here's a directory. And it's got a README, which you can just read about some basic information, index.html. Now, every website, the root page should always be index.html. That's sort of the default page for things. So if a browser is pointing to a directory for a website, index.html is what it will actually show by default. Okay, and then there's image folder, which has all the images that have been set up that are attached to this page. Fonts is some of the embedded fonts. This is actually for special icons and stuff. You'll see that in a minute. Font Awesome is some other things about fonts. And then CSS is the Bootstrap framework, which gives you a really nice baseline of CSS stuff. And then landing page CSS is the specific CSS that actually works with this particular page. So let's just open up index.html. And open in, I've got so many different browsers. Let me do it from here. So it's on my desktop, and it's on landing pages, index. Okay, so here's what it looks like. It's nicely spaced out. It's got these nice rollover button effects. It's got a header. It's got a footer with all sorts of little things. Each of these jump to different parts of the page. This goes up here. It's got a big hero picture on the top. It's got more buttons here, big titles. It's also responsive, so as it grows, you see the content grows and shrinks, and as it shrinks, some of the fonts change size, and the different dimensions change size, and eventually everything just collapses right down. So if you're on a mobile-sized device, you can see there everything sort of is on top of each other rather than side by side. And then if we grow it back out to be full size, you see everything rearranges. So this is what's called a responsive design. This is what all the websites are doing these days. And while you could do your own responsive design, it's much better to use a library or a framework. And Bootstrap is one of them. And Start Bootstrap gives this all to you. Bootstrap as well as some extra layout advice already. So this is what's handy about it. And so this is why we're using it. So we start with our landing page. And let's open this in Sublime Text. So I'm just going to go over to Sublime Text, and I'm going to open up a new window. Stuff's on my other screen here, so just give me a sec. There we go. So I am now going to open And go back out to here, desktop. This site, open up index. And you can see here the index page. And as you'll notice, Sublime Text has this little side browser that lets you see all the page. And it's kind of nice because a lot of things like web pages, if they use indenting properly, you can sort of get a sense of all the pieces of the page just by seeing the structure over here. And it's a very quick way to bounce around. But you can see here's a bunch of head stuff. Here's the top area with the nav bar and stuff. Here's one chunk of content, sort of the hero section. And here's the four different sections on the page. You can see here 1, 2, 3, and then another small one at the bottom. So you can see those three things are kind of similar, and you can see them reflected there. And then the footer part, and then the very bottom footer part, and then the end. So you can see that all there just from the side area, but you can also see it obviously as you scroll around through the actual content. And what's nice with this is they've labeled everything really nicely with comments. There's a comment, anything in faded gray with a little exclamation point dash dash. This explains what's going on with the page. So one of the nice things with the web is you can do view source on anything, and especially if you find templates and stuff, take a look at how they organize the page. So here you can see up here is a bunch of extra stuff. This is for mobile, don't worry about it. Let's call it my 7 favorite films. So while we're here, we can start doing stuff since we're going through. Here's where we link in the style sheets. Here's where we link in some custom fonts and some other stuff with Google. And then there's the finish of our head. That's the head section. Here's our body. And you can see here, whoops, they talk about the nav bar. That's this thing up here. You can see it's got links on it and a heading. That's up here. This is to be fleshed out over time, but you can see it shows and hides based on, if we shrink this down, this now is a drop-down menu. That's this bit here, and then you can see down here we have our about services and contact, etc. So we'll work about that later. But let me see here, we've got about, intro, header, container. Here's a bunch of things that says landing page, so that's this content. So let's maybe change that. So 7 films, some current favorites. So now we save, so once again, file save, let's reload. Bang, okay, now we've already got updated content, right? So the title is my 7 favorite films, bottom is 7 films, some current favorites, and then the rest of the content hasn't changed yet. So let's work on this. Now this thing has 3 sections, and of course we're going to need 7 sections for one for each of our films, right? So let's go and find that out. So this is a bunch of different ways to find these. You can see that look for common text, so stock photo, right? So let's look in here, Command F, stock, bang. Okay, so once again, I'm just using this to jump down to the content. So it's really handy to have it that way. Then I hit escape and it clears it out. So this is section, page content, section A, container, row, a bunch of stuff. Don't worry about that exactly. The dynamic layout, the responsive design uses rows and columns. And you can specify columns, there's up to 12 columns and it sort of shows and hides them. So this is a row and inside it's got a bunch of columns and you can look up the more details of exactly how this works later. But you can see there's container and we're closing content section A. So there's content section A, then there's B, then there's A again. So you see this is basically B means, so A means it's a thing with text on the left and a picture on the right. So text on the left, picture on the right. Section B, text on the left, picture on, section B has it backwards, so the picture's on the left and the text is on the right. And you'll see how this works. But basically we just have to find our, so we go A, B, A, so let's take, then the next thing's going to be another B. So we take this div all the way down, and since I've got proper indentation, it's really easy to say where things start. So we'll go underneath this A, and let's go back down to, you see where they end it, make a new B. So that means we've got 4 things. And now we can do both of these sections together. So that means we can now already have 4. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to add 2 more, 5, 6. 5, 6, you can see here. And then one last one, and it's going to be with the picture on the right. So let's go back to the top. And there, go all the way down to the bottom part here. Oops, down here. Okay, then here we go. And you see I'm looking for these tags. Now I can try to guess from the content, but it's nice to have these comment tags here so I can easily see what's going on. So now we've got our structure. We've got our header. We have our content 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Then we have a footer and like a bottom part with some calls to action, and then a bottom footer with extra stuff. So now we can fill in our names of our films, right? So let's see, what are the other ones? So current ones are like, let's go here, The Arrival. Or is it Arrival? The Arrival was one from the 90s, which was also about aliens, but wasn't anywhere near as good. Let's see, so let's do this one. What's out there now that I've liked? I haven't seen that many movies this year, actually. The last bunch of movies that I liked. Well, Rogue One. Da, da, da. Oh, well, just The Force Awakens. I'm just going to be boring. I've heard La La Land is good, so I'm just going to say La La Land, even though I haven't seen it yet. And let's see, The Secret, actually, Zootopia was really good. If you're going to do an computer animated movie with animals, that's one. And I heard Manoa. Is it Manoa? Manoa. Anyway, we'll find out. I'm not going to worry about spelling at this point. We were trying to do things. And then let's see. What's another one? What's nice with this is I get to see what everyone's favorite movies are, but then I feel always on the spot when I'm sharing my movies with everybody. When I do these classes, it's great to see all the different movies that we'll talk about. Let me just go all the way back to Brazil. If you've ever seen Brazil, it's a really crazy, dark movie, but it seems very appropriate to our slightly crazy times. So let's see what's happened. So we got Brazil, Manoa, Zootopia, La La Land, Star Wars, Force Awakens, Rogue One, Arrival. So there we go. So now let's take this. So what we're doing is we're just sort of finding the content, not messing around with the tags too much because we don't quite know. We don't want to mess everything up by getting rid of a bunch of different tags. So we just sort of go in and change the content in various places. So yeah, we're not going to have as much super control over all of the layout as we would if we were doing it all by ourselves. But on the other hand, they've done a lot of this for us. So the trick then becomes to find a good template that you like. And in this case, I think we have. So what we want to do now is change some of these pictures. So let's do Arrival. So one challenge is to find good pictures. So I go to IMDb is a good place for pictures. Obviously, if you're doing your own actual commercial websites, just ripping pictures off other places is sometimes a bit tricky. But let's see. So look for Arrival. It's called Arrival, not The Arrival. Okay, that's good to know. And let's look for pictures. They usually have pictures in here, 82 images. And there's a whole bunch, and they have these awesome movie poster things that were really great. So let's take something like that one, and save image as. So this is a trick if you want to get pictures out and you do them yourself. Date. Okay, I've got so many different versions of this in here. So you basically take the picture and you save it into your images directory. So Arrival, JPEG. Okay, and now we've got, it's called arrival.jpg. So here where there's a picture, which is called ipad.png, we can call arrival.jpg. Okay, and now what that's done is we've downloaded the file, saved it in our file system, and now we've linked that file to here. Bang, there we go, see? Now we've taken that picture and we put it over here, and it's even responsive. It already knows to shrink it and grow it to fit the available space. See, it was pretty cool, all without having to do much. So this gives us, once again, this is why we do these template things, because it's actually much handier for people. We haven't put new captions in yet, but we can work on that. Let's see, but let's also, while we're here, let's do a arrival and copy that link and turn the title into an actual link. So here we go. Ahref equals that. See how that does. Okay, now it's clickable, and it goes to the IMDb page. See? So let's go back. Or let's go to the Arrival page again, and just see if there's a context. There we go. Let's for now put that in. Oops. Okay, so now we've got some content. And find out where this is. There we go. Okay, so now let's do our next one. So this is going to be Rogue One. So you can see all I'm just doing is I'm taking all this stuff, and I'm going to go to IMDb. I'm going to find some Rogue One stuff. A Star Wars story. So now we have the link. Take that. First thing we're going to do. So I'm not going to do all 7 because we have better things to do with our time. But you get a sense of how I'm doing this. I'm putting content in. And then maybe that picture. Okay, so let's look at images. There's 1,000 images. I think we'll find something in here that we like. Okay, this one's cool with the spaceships. All right, and the walkers and everything. Whoops. So let's save this. Save images. Call it battle.jpg. And then here we put it in instead of. There we go. So now we reload. Oops. Okay, there's our Rogue One picture with a battle in space, or not in space, on the planet, but basically a Star Wars battle happening. There you go. Now the thing is with pictures, if you're doing your own real site, you'd probably want to crop these pictures down into something nicer, maybe change the dimensions a little bit just so they don't look so weird, because we have this very tall picture here and a very narrow picture here. You might want to take them and, for example, if you go into here and go Arrival, and you just open it by default. If you're on a Mac, it'll open it in Preview, which has actually got a lot of special features, very powerful, actually, tool. You can do lots of little touch-ups and stuff, so you can actually edit. Well, you can just take a selection, make a selection of things like this, make it a bit tighter, so it's more square, highlighting this big alien. Whoops, highlighting this big alien ship. And then you go Edit or Tools. Where does it go? Crop. And now it's shrunk it down. Until you save that, that's now saved this new version of this picture, and then when we reload the page, bang, that's a little less complicated, a little less jarringly large. So then we can do that with our next one. Battle, so open that in, oops, bring this over. And do the same thing. So let's try to focus this on the explosion and the one walker leg there. Bring it in a bit. So now it's going to be a bit more rectangular. And the shortcut for crop is Command K. And then we can save that. And now we have, okay, so it just makes these a little bit easier to work with without overloading the page quite so much with the strange dimensions. So that's kind of nice. So you can see there, this is a bit better. Force Awakens, etc. So Rogue One, I'm just going to maybe go over back to IMDb. And maybe go to you find quotes. Quotes is a fun place if you're doing cool things. Quotes. See more. I don't have a good speech. There we go. So here's one that's actually some dialogue. So we want to make these Okay, just for giggles, there we go. Okay. Voila. So you can see there's a content change. Now, changing this, we did this in the little tutorial video. This hero picture isn't a regular image tag. It's a special one that's actually co-opting the background, the image background in the CSS. So we need to find our CSS file for this. So I'm going to go File O, and we open up CSS, landing page CSS. You could look at the other ones, but they're really big and complicated and messy, and they're really not going to give you much to you. You know, this is, you can see how huge this is, and it's all sorts of just so much going on. Anyway, you don't want to worry about that. The whole idea with doing Bootstrap framework is you don't have to mess with the framework. You can do your own stuff on top of it. So anyway, intro. So this section here is called intro header. So if we could do inspect, as we saw, this brings up a little interface that lets us see all the different elements on the page and see how they work. This is a great way also to figure out how HTML works. Because as you roll over things in the in the console on the elements listing, it actually highlights those elements on the page. And so you can see all the different pieces and how they interrelate and how they interact, which is very cool. You can see the different pieces as I roll through this. What's even more fun is you can actually temporarily change the content here. Now, it's not that exciting if you just change some text, but that's kind of how, now we reload, it goes back to the way it was. But you can just quickly go in and make some changes if you want. Maybe, you know, bang, oh my goodness, I just ruined everything, right? Just so you can see what happens by trying different stuff, so that's kind of handy. But what I want to do is I want to take this intro header. And you see here, background, URL, image, intro, BG. So we can try different pictures in here and see what happens, but let's look for a good picture. Another source of good pictures is images, google.ca. And you can say movies. There's a perfect picture. So there's that one, maybe that one. It's nice to have a big dark picture because then it sort of covers up things. So let's see. This is, okay, so let's take that view image. There we go. So once again, save image as, and call it cinema image. Once again, you want to be careful with the rights when you're doing this for commercial purposes. If you do this as the main hero picture on your commercial website, and it turns out, you know, this might not be licensed for commercial use without paying a fee. This is simply a personal private project, and I'm not charging, you know, whatever. This is just for, you know, fun. It's not as big a deal, but still, be careful when you just pull things off of Google. Also, another thing, you could, in theory, just have the link go to this page. But it's better to download the picture and work with it locally to make sure that you actually, because somebody could change this picture and point it to something else, which would be a big headache. But if you do want to try things out, remember we showed you how you could change the image reference. So you just change this right here. You can see there, you just changed it. I took the address from here and I copied it, right? I just copy. Right? And then I put that in here in the actual little CSS readout for this particular element, which temporarily changed the picture to that. And see if it looks good. Does it look good? Yeah, I think it looks good. So we can reload that and it goes back to the original. But now I know that that's good, so I can go over to my actual file. And here, I put it in the intro page. Whoops. What did I call it? Cinema images. Cinema JPEG, okay. Now I could put the whole path in there, but like I said, you don't want to do that. So, okay, so now, there we go. Okay, some favorite films. There's a bunch of movies, and a quick other thing. So, while we're here, before we get going, you got Twitter, GitHub, and LinkedIn links, depending on what you want to do. I don't really have those. I could do Twitter. You know, we could be, there's my Twitter account. I don't have GitHub and I don't have LinkedIn at this time. So I get rid of those. That makes this more useful. Okay. And then, but you can make these be whatever you want. So you could have these buttons, whoops, I think it's LI. Yeah. These could be any number of things. So this could be like, and then And then these are FA, these are Font Awesome. These are little icons you can get from Font Awesome. I don't remember. Let's see if there's one called Movie. They have little fonts for everything. No, that basically fills in this little thing with a special font thing. I can't remember what they all are. You can look these all up. In fact, let's go there. Font Awesome icons. Just do a quick search. Cheat sheet. Here's a font Awesome icons. I'll close that. So you can see here there's all sorts of icons. I am just going to go, there's one that says camera. And we can even do movie, no, cinema, no, camera. The camera, video camera, FA video camera, that'll work. So it's FA-video camera. So let's try that. Bang, there you go, IMDb, Twitter. So there you go. You can sort of put your own little icons in. We have this at the top, about services contract. This is obviously designed for a services website or something like that. So we want to make this different. We want to actually put the links to our movies so you can get to it from the top. You know, maybe, actually we don't even need that many. And this is known as an anchor. These are, you see you have a number sign in front. This says go to the piece on the page that's called this name, and that's using an A instead of an href. Instead of going to a different page, the number sign means something else on the page. So we can look for services. So you see a name is services. This is a way of anchoring a piece of text. So we can call this instead movies. So that then when we load the page, it now says movies. We go back up here. It'll now jump us down to the movies list. You see that? So it just jumps us right there, even no matter where we may be. So that's kind of handy. It is one way, even though it's all one page, you can jump around to the different parts of the page. Contact takes us down to the bottom where the extra information is. And down here, it's also got the same thing, services. We can make that movies. We'll get rid of about. Oops. Okay. Home, movies, contact. So then movies takes us back up here again. So you can see that, how you can jump around on the content. So there you go. So that's sort of a basic round trip, a quick tour of how you can change things on your own templates and then do all sorts of fun stuff by basically take a template and do cool things with it. You know, to find out more, let me just make one last small change. Down here, and then once again, it's back to the same things that are at the top, but that's okay. Twitter, in fact, we can just take the thing that we got from the top here, because it's basically the same thing, I think. Go down. Yep. See that? And we get rid of the LinkedIn. So these are basically a version of stuff upstairs. So there you go. So you can see very quickly we've been able to do a bunch of things. Maybe we can find a better picture for this that's not somebody writing in a book, but you get the idea. So there you go. That's how basically you can change stuff on a pre-existing template page and make it your own. So this is really kind of handy. Also, hopefully it shows you not to be scared of big complicated pages, because what you really need to do is just scroll around and find the bits that you want, or do quick search and find the bits that you want, right? And find the content. And that's just the really quick way to get to know how to work with bigger files, because that's what you're going to probably, as a professional, you're going to spend a lot of time building things from templates or adapting pre-existing content, because not everybody gets to build things from scratch. So hope you enjoyed that. and hope you get a chance to try out one of the real-life Lighthouse Labs classes, because that'll really help you play with this a lot. And enjoy, play with this, download those templates, make your own pages, play with them, just see how you can make things work out, and have a great time. And hope to see you at one of the events, especially if you're going to be in Halifax. Come to one of the free evening or weekend sessions, and I would be totally thrilled to meet you and say hi and help you out with your coding. Okay, take care.